All right, let's get started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Erik Gross. I'm your host for the day, and I think I can do a little F11 action here, make it bigger. So that's me. I'm a nerd. I've been a computer programmer for a long time. I'm what they would call a senior level software developer. That just means I've been around long enough to know a few things and be quite aware of how much I don't know. That's what a senior software developer is. I'm a military vet. Spent 6 years in the U.S. Navy operating nuclear reactors and maintaining and repairing electronic equipment and teaching electronics and digital circuitry and computers and all kinds of nerdy stuff. And I'm the co-founder of the Tech Academy, which is a software developer bootcamp. So that's me. Good to see y'all. We have an assistant in the class. Her name is Regina, and she is monitoring the chat. She's there to answer questions and just all around help out. And we'll use chat as we go through, right? Obviously, we've used it a little bit to get to know everyone. So anyway, just ask questions. That's what we're here for. I'm going to attempt to answer a lot of questions, but I really like to hear from you folks. And at various points, I'll stop and ask you folks questions. And this is meant to be a little bit back and forth. We have another service that we provide where it's very back and forth, but I do want to hear from you. So let's use chat. This is the basic agenda. Brief explanation of the Tech Academy. We'll run our workshop about ChatGPT and how it applies to developers. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. We'll go over some information about our boot camps. We have a free gift for you if you stick around. Please do. Whole class should last about an hour, hour and a half tops. So, who are we? Well, we're the Tech Academy, and we deliver coding boot camps. Very, very briefly. Coding boot camps are just intensive, training and certification programs, technology training programs, and they're designed to prepare people for entry-level positions in tech. As a category, this way into technology has only been around for about 10 years, right? We were there right at the beginning. Typically, bootcamp programs last like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but they focus on practical modern skills that can get you hired right away. We've been offering really thorough, budget-friendly, flexible, trusted coding bootcamps for over a decade now. We really were around at the very beginning when it was a very weird thing and people were like, you're doing what? You can't teach someone to code in 6 months. Well, yes, we can. Our certification programs are cost-effective, they're self-paced, they're online, and they are tailored for beginners that have no prior knowledge, like technology knowledge or coding knowledge, which is really cool. They cover in-demand skills for the tech industry. They're endorsed by thousands of stellar online reviews, and they're designed to fit around your personal schedule. And we prepare you for your technology career with a well-rounded toolkit. In America, the average price for boot camps all across the board is about $13,000, $13,500. Ours are under the national average. We start at $5,300 in tuition, which is pretty good. I want to read our mission statement because it has everything to do with why we're giving these classes and why we even exist. The mission statement of the Tech Academy is to graduate entry-level technology professionals that excel in the basics of their field and thereafter have successful careers in the tech industry and whose actions raise industry standards and surpass client expectations. Our product is you working in tech. So that's why we're here. Now, I mentioned we have a different service which is a lot more Q&A. This is a new service we launched about a month ago. It's called the Tech Academy Accelerator. It's a monthly subscription program that includes live weekly workshops with me. More on that in a second. Over 100 educational videos and over 100 self-paced online mini classes in a wide variety of subjects. The thing about the workshops we do inside the accelerator is we do a really deep dive. The class you're in tonight is broad scale, meant for introductory. When we do the accelerator, we do complex technical subjects. There's a Q&A back and forth with open chat and voice. We teach topics suggested by the community, and there's a whole community surrounding it. So that whole thing, the Tech Academy Accelerator, we've made it wide open. It's $9.99 a month, and you can try it out for your first 7 days free. Regina's just posted a link in the chat if that's something you're interested in. I really love doing these. If you're at all interested in getting into tech or you're in tech and you want to accelerate your career, you should join this. We have a lot of fun. I teach a lot of stuff and I teach what you want to know, which is really cool. So If you click on that link, it'll take you to a place you can sign up. It'll ask for your card number, but you won't get charged for a week because you get a free week trial. I'm going to pause for a moment to sip some water. Anybody wants to fill that out, go right ahead. And you can cancel anytime. We'd love to see you in there. We have a blast. All right, so basic class expectations, then we'll get started. What we'll have today is simple definitions for technical terms. We will explain complex technology concepts in plain English. There isn't any coding in this class. There's a lot of really valuable data, but there's no coding. We do regular coding classes. Every week we do free coding classes. And Regina, if you could drop a link to the next coding class, there it is. Just a couple days, and we'd love to see you there. If you want to get your hands dirty with figuring out whether you like this coding stuff or not, this is one of the best places you can do it. So I'll wait a moment for people to click open that link. They want to. And then we're going to get started with our workshop. Yay. All right. Let's talk about how to use ChatGPT as a software developer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that everyone on this call has heard of ChatGPT, but I want to check on something. If you have never once ever used ChatGPT, drop a 1 in the chat. Good, okay? All right. Got that from Doug, Kevin, excellent. All right, thank you. Now, next question. This is for everyone. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about using ChatGPT to be productive, to get value out of it? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about your ability to use ChatGPT for meaningful work? Got some 8, 7s, 6, 5, 5, 7.5, 8. We got a 9. That's fantastic. Some 7s and 9s, some 2s, all over the map. Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to have a very brief orientation here with a couple of slides just on some fundamentals of using ChatGPT. For many of you, this might be a review. For some of you, it might open your eyes to a couple of things. I'm not going to go to a deep dive on what ChatGPT is. I did a whole presentation on that about a month ago. You can find it on YouTube in our free educational videos collection. We'll have links to that at the end of the class. And I did a whole thing about what ChatGPT is. So if you're really new to it and you want a bit more of a deeper dive, grab that link at the end of the class. And like I said, it's about a month ago, you'll see a chat, what is ChatGPT? What is AI? All that kind of stuff, okay? Now, here's some basic orientation. When you are interacting with a tool like ChatGPT, because ChatGPT has competitors, but when you're interacting with a tool like ChatGPT, you're basically saying, in essence, now listen, this is pretty cool. You're saying, hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to give you some text. And I want you to read through that text. And I want you to predict what should result because of me giving you that text. What exact words should result? What's the probabilities? What's the most likely sequence of words and sentences and paragraphs that should result from me having given you some text? And the text you give it is a prompt. What it gives you back, its prediction of what the most logical or likely words and sentences and paragraphs, that's called the result. The reason I talk about it that way, that you're giving it some text and it's going to give you back what is the most likely response, is because that just puts into stark relief the fact that the AI is not thinking. It's not actually answering you. Answering involves human thought. People answer each other. This is a program and it's giving you a response. And all that program is a collection of words and sentences and paragraphs that seems to be the most logical response to what you gave it. More on that in that workshop I gave the other day, or last month. But I want to talk a bit about a prompt. Like I said, it's just a piece of text. You give it to this thing called ChatGPT. The thing that ChatGPT is called a model. More precisely, it's called a large language model. It's an artificial intelligence term. But you just want to generate a response, right? Now, you can give it a question. You can just give it a statement. You can give it part of a sentence. Again, all this tool, ChatGPT, does is try to predict what's the most logical text to give back to you based on what you gave it. And it does so really, really effectively because it's been trained on a huge number of words, sentences, and paragraphs. So it's got a pretty good idea of what should come next, but it's not actually thinking. All right. This is a framework for a prompt. Now, there are a number of different approaches to this that you may have found if you're like diving deep into ChatGPT and other, large language models. I'm not saying this is the best. I'm saying it works and I can remember it each time. These are 5 things to think about whenever you're writing a prompt. Now, again, I did a much deeper dive on this in a previous training, so I won't spend too much time on it. But briefly, the role is who you're telling ChatGPT to be. Remember, it was trained on billions and billions of pieces of data written by people from all different walks of life and professions and socioeconomic backgrounds and cultures and all that sort of stuff. What's valuable about giving ChatGPT a role to take on is when you do so, it will automatically eliminate from the possible words it's going to use to generate the response a huge chunk of data that has nothing to do with what you're trying to do. As an example, if you're trying to do something related to coding, ChatGPT happens to have been trained on text that involves alpaca farming, how to be a really good alpaca farmer. You probably don't need ChatGPT to take up its precious compute time to incorporate some kind of words or sentences or paragraphs related to alpaca farming in generating the response for you that relates to coding. And so what giving it a role does is concentrates the attention of the AI on a subset of the data it's been trained on. And so it's very valuable. It gives you better results. And it's particularly valuable when you're using ChatGPT as a developer, to figure out what's the right kind of role to give ChatGPT. The result is, what are you trying to get? We're going to go over a few examples of things you might want to use ChatGPT to create for you. But a typical one might be some code, like a specific chunk of code to do a specific thing. And there are other examples, but result is, what do you want? Lots of people are using it to produce like an article, a blog post, an image. In other words, what do you want ChatGPT to spit back at you? That's what result is. Intent has to do with why you're doing it or what you're going to use the response for. Those 2 additional pieces of nuanced information given to ChatGPT can make it give you even better results. Then there's context. Why are you even doing this? Why are you asking it to do this work? Give it some background on the kind of project you're working on, what's been done beforehand, what might be done with, its output, what the steps of the process are. This context really, again, helps ChatGPT to give you a better response. And finally, constraints, which is one of the most looked elements of building a good prompt, but it's really valuable. A constraint says, hey, go ahead and make all this content for me, please. But here's an exact restriction I'm going to give you, like, just to be absurd, because I like being absurd. You can only use the first 20 letters of the alphabet. You probably wouldn't do that, but ChatGPT would do its best, right? More likely in terms of constraints is one that a lot of people might use, but not realize it's a constraint, which is like, please write your response with the vocabulary of your average middle schooler. Okay, that's a constraint. So would be write it in a light humorous style. That would be a constraint. When it comes to the coding, this part is really valuable. Like if you're using it for technology subjects, which is what we're going to look at tonight, right? This constraint thing can be super valuable because you can tell it, when you're generating your code, please use version 1.5 of the language, or whatever it is you want, right? When generating code, please write it to connect to only this type of database. Oh, that's a constraint. ChatGPT is capable, because it's been trained on a lot of data, is capable of probably writing your little code snippet to connect to a wide variety of databases. And if you didn't put that constraint in, it might generate it 5 different ways and say, I provided you 5 examples just in case you happen to be using one of these databases. Well, you know what it is, so put it in as a constraint. So, frankly, I think this is one of the more valuable things we're going to talk about tonight, is this framework for crafting a prompt. I'll show you examples of what they look like, right? But if you want to up your game with ChatGPT, raise it from the 2 range to the 7, 8, 9, like I see in some of these, this is one of your most valuable tools, is working with this framework. All right, now let's get to actually using ChatGPT as a developer. What are some use cases? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of them, right? But frankly, by seeing how we would use ChatGPT in just a few cases, and then, this is the important part, by actually using ChatGPT in these cases, getting your hands dirty with it, it'll open your mind to lots of other different ways you can use it. We don't need to give you 17 different examples. I want you to take 3 here and just start using it this way. So let's look at how you could use it for code generation. Now, I have a relatively complicated one right here. Okay, there's a lot of words here you might not understand. I'm going to show you one where you could really simplify it. Let's say you were brand new to coding, right? So we're going to switch here for a second. Lo and behold, to ChatGPT. And if you can't see the input window down below because of Zoom or whatever, move the little control out of the way. I want you to be able to see what I'm typing here, okay? Here's the basic thing I want to do is, let's say you're just learning a brand new language and you've heard about this thing called a hello world, instruction. It's pretty common in technology. If you haven't heard of that, it's just a lot of the times when you're doing your very first baby steps in learning a new programming language, a lot of books or tutorials will say, well, let's at least just use the language to print hello world. It gets your hands dirty with the language, right? So you could say, I am a beginning student of coding. There's a role, right? And here's a result. Please generate a hello world code example. Use Python. I need an explanation of each part of the code so I can understand what it does. Please write that explanation. Let me see if I can not type badly. That explanation in simple terms. Let's see what it does. Now, I want to show you something here, just because I thought of it. Okay, let's make a new one. I'm gonna copy that because that was pretty nice, and I don't want to lose it just in case. Every once in a while, ChatGPT does weird things. Write a hello world sample in Python. Do you see how much less helpful that is? Here, it even explains what what it is. It's the first step to understanding how the code works. And it breaks it down, every single aspect of it. It covers the fact that print happens to be a built-in function in Python. Now, if I were brand new to technology, and by the way, this is just some advice for the people that are totally new to coding or technology. If I'd managed to write something like this or get anything close to this kind of an explanation, you know what I would do? Is I would go through here and go, okay, what are the words in here that I don't know what they mean? I might even get down here and go, print function. This is a built-in function. What is a function? If I can type, well. Now, what's really nice to know here, and just keep this in mind, again, if you're relatively new to ChatGPT, is the previous elements of the framework that you communicate in the first prompt, right up here, they remain as part of this conversation. You don't need to restate them. It totally understands who you are, what its job is. It understands that you really want explanations in simple terms. You want to understand each part of the code. So when you say, what is a function, I'm predicting it'll probably do a decent job of explaining it. By the way, if you didn't know what a function was, or were a little bit fuzzy on the explanation, please read this. I'm going to leave it there for a moment because it's actually pretty valuable. Of course, it's really explaining all of it. Yeah, look, honestly, like, it's so much better. Like, I'll wait till it's done here. That is a really, really good explanation. And I'll share this chat with you. If you don't have a ChatGPT subscription, type me in chat. If you don't have a ChatGPT subscription, type me. Okay, Kevin. If you go to chat.openai.com, okay, I see it. You can get one for free. Yes, and these recordings are saved. We'll give you links to them at the end. All right, so several people. If you literally you see the URL right here. If you go there, chat.openai.com, you can sign up for a free account. I pay $20 a month for the pro account because it has a better language model, but even the other one, which is called 3.5, is still really good. Okay, I just want to show you all something. So here's this explanation of what's a function. And it continued with its way of producing content, which is really good. But let's go back to the other one I did. I did a Hello World tutorial. What if I just asked it here? What is now? It isn't that this isn't valuable. It is. But you'll see mostly what's missing is detailed context. It's not bad, but this is better. So that's one thing you can use it for. Now, because we get a lot of people relatively new to technology here, I'm not going to dive into a detailed explanation of a super complex prompt to generate code. I do want to show you an example of one, right? If we take this right here, again, it would take me about 10 minutes to explain all the complex terminology here. But I just want to show you that when you get good at this and you can specify exact who you are, what's the output that you want, what's it supposed to do, give me some context, give me a constraint. When you do that, just watch it spit this stuff out. It writes the thing you want. It even shows you how to integrate it into your application. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Guy, good catch. This little functionality right here, this little symbol, is called an arrow function. And again, way nerdy. It's just one way you can write functions in JavaScript. I told it not to use any, and it did. If I really cared, I would say you used arrow functions in some code. Please rewrite all code so it doesn't use any arrow functions. No need to be mean to it. Doug, that was a really good question. Way beyond the scope of what we get into right now. They are different things. It has the same sort of symbology you might see in a different language, but it's not the same thing. That is exactly the kind of thing to come into the accelerator for, and we can dive into all kinds of deep, nerdy details about that. Spot on. Guy, that was a good catch. And by the way, this is another really important point for anybody who's going to use ChatGPT often, especially to produce code. It will give you a different result every single time you run the same prompt, which is weird, but not weird, because that's the nature of a large language model. If you dive deep into artificial intelligence, it's not a program that has one specific input produces an exact known output. That's not how it works, which is both its magic and something to make you tear your hair out. I've run that specific prompt many times in different trainings. It's never used arrow functions before. Again, Zhao, that's a great question. You asked about the ChatGPT model doing what's called hallucinating, where it's almost inventing data or often forgetting the context of what you told it and going off weird. That's a bit beyond the scope of like how to tell if it's hallucinating. Usually because you know the domain, like the reason why you're getting it to create content, and you know enough factual data inside that domain, you can tell if it's making stuff up. But when it comes, and by the way, I'm actually really glad that you asked that. This brings up one other really critical thing. If we look at the code that's written now, again, I'm not going to dive deep into it, right? Here's the revised ones without arrow functions, right? I happen to have written a lot of programs using these technologies, and I can tell you that I could probably lift this code, or I could use the copy code thing here, and I could use it in an actual application I was building with none or very little changes. This is perfectly fine written code. But if I were just to dump it into my computer program without reading through every line, I'm being very risky. Do not automatically trust what's generated by ChatGPT. Ever. That's not what it's for. It's there to get you most of the way to your final product. And particularly in engineering, you have a very high responsibility to vet this code. So that's one of the, obviously, it's the number one, like, how could I, as a developer, use ChatGPT? Well, you can use it for code, to generate code. Again, the better your prompt or your question, the better the result you're going to get. And we saw that down here. A little bit of prompt context gives you a much better result. Okay. So that's the use code part of it. What else? Researching technology concepts. Again, there's a lot on this one. I'll show you this one in a moment. But let's just look at researching technology concepts. And we'll do some examples here. So let's say you're, again, kind of a new student. In fact, if you are new to studying computer programming or technology, and there's a burning question you have, drop it into chat. No one else will see it. It just goes to me and Regina. There's a burning question you have, drop it into chat. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab Zhao's. Zhao asked a question. He says, are there any clues to detect if the model is hallucinating? So let's say you were listening to this training, like you are, and you're like, Eric, what the heck does it mean if a model is hallucinating? Well, even though it might be ChatGPT that we're talking about, that might be hallucinating, whatever that is, you can use ChatGPT to figure this stuff out. So remember, we need a role, we need some result, we need some context, we need some constraints, we need some intent. So I would go like this. I'd say, you are an AI expert. You understand everything about how ChatGPT works. Please write an explanation of what hallucination is. And how I could detect if it was occurring. I am trying to understand some context, right? Intent, the basics of AI. Please write in a simple, clear manner. Let's just see what happens here. Move up a little bit for people who want to read that. So I'm trying to use an example here from someone relatively new in their technology journey, but I just want to, again, reiterate, let's go up to the prompt. I've tried to think with this concept of role, result, intent, context, and constraint. In fact, for a while, I just had that open in a little text document on a second monitor while I was just learning the fundamentals, getting my hands dirty with ChatGPT last spring. And I've just, at this point, I can think with it pretty fluidly, but I still go back and refresh my memory on it, right? I've just found it really valuable. So we've got some role right here, right? We have some context. Like this is a bit more of role and context, right? This is some intent, or sorry, result. You want an explanation, and you give them a little bit of like context and intent right here. This is why I'm asking you to do this. This is a constraint right here. And by the way, if look, I know I'm belaboring the point on this little framework thing here, but if you find that fascinating, I want to get a bit more of an understanding of it and want to experiment around with it. Again, at the end of this, we'll give you a link to some of our past classes. And I did an intro to AI and to ChatGPT where we dove into each element of that. And we did a really cool exercise, which is that we would take a prompt and only put into to ChatGPT one thing. We just give it a role. Then we would give it a role and a result. Then we give it a role, a result, and an intent, and so on, until we used all of them. We kept comparing the output each time, and we could see how much better the output got. It's a valuable exercise, actually. Okay, good. So here's another one. Can't you just copy paste the code without any prompts and we'll explain it to you automatically? I haven't done that. That's not a bad idea, actually. This is a good question. Okay. This is another way of getting the AI to explain technology concepts to you. So we'll try that. Thomas had a great idea. He says, can't you just copy and paste the code without any prompts and it'll explain it to you automatically? Let's try it. I have here a controller. I've copied it. I'm going to get a brand new conversation, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that in there. I didn't say anything. I just pasted code in there. Let's see what it does. Yeah, that's great, Thomas. Thank you. I hadn't actually done that. Now, does anybody have an idea? And this next question of mine, there's no right answer to. Anybody have any idea, like thoughts on why it is that it's so good at reacting to code and giving you explanations like this? Zhao, I'll get to your question in a second. Anybody have an idea why ChatGPT would work so well with code? Yeah, August, you're totally on the right track. Code repositories are available on the internet, and yeah, Zhao says it because it's trained in GitHub. There were two rather large sets of data that were technical in nature that, frankly, ChatGPT or OpenAI, the company, they just slurped up without permission, and that was Stack Overflow, which is an incredibly popular developer resource with millions of different lines of code and examples and explanations on it, and GitHub, which is where there's lots of open sets of code. Nikki, it is going to be recorded. It won't be emailed. The thing to do, Nikki, is to go to our YouTube channel for the Tech Academy. We have a free training resource there. So yeah, you'll see a couple different things here. Like you can come up with the question. I came up with this question about hallucination, and I just tried to think with this framework that I showed you earlier, right? And it did a good job. And then, great idea from it was Michael or Thomas. I apologize. Just dump the code in, right? Now, you can get even more detail on it. I've never done that, but I'll tell you what, I could actually have a lot of fun with saying, you are an experienced Python developer with strong expertise in security. I am going to give you a code sample. It is a controller method for a CRUD. That means create, read, update, and delete. CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. For a CRUD API, that's an application program interface. It receives requests for information or for instructions to create, read, and update, delete things. It's a controller method for a CRUD API. Please analyze the code sample and tell me how it could be improved. Pay strong attention to security concerns. Now, I'm doing this one on purpose, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So you gave him a role, string, strong. I'm going to give you a code sample, controller method for code API. Please analyze the code sample. Okay, good. Oh, I didn't paste the other one in. So security and best practices. Ooh, yeah. Input validation. More detailed error response. There's no logging. Security headers. Yeah. Authorization. Whoa! And it gives me a refactored example. Look at that. Sorry. I just love this stuff. ChatGPT just gets better and better. Okay, so I just want to give you several examples of the fact that if you're trying to get it to explain complex technology concepts, it'll always give you some sort of a result. But the quality of the prompt you give it, the more context you can give it, the more like you describing how you want it to communicate with you, the better the results will be. So I'll show you one last example, which is kind of fun. So I want you all to read this whole prompt that I have on the screen. So let's just do this. And I'm going to show you how, if you start from this kind of you got to think a little bit. You have to get your thoughts in order to put something together like this. Okay. Now, I've done this when I want to learn a new technology. And all I do is I put in the fact that I'm already an experienced engineer. Here's my areas where I've got, strong experience. I'm interested in this new area. Don't know a lot about it. Please give me a study plan on how I could attack this from the point of view of already having experience as an engineer, right? And it does a really good job of laying out what to study and explaining some of the concepts and everything. But I did this one because we have a lot of new people on the class, from clearly the point of view of, hey, ChatGPT, basically, hey, ChatGPT, you're Erik, or any one of the instructors at our school. This is what I need from you. So let's copy that bad boy. Go over here. Oh, I want to answer a question before we start. I know I'm probably mispronouncing it. I know it's Portuguese and I'm saying it wrong. Zhao. For every new question that's not a follow-up from the previous one, is it always recommended to open a new chat session? Thinking I might up with hundreds of chat sessions at the end of the day? The answer is yes. And the reason for it is that your very first prompt contains so much role, intention, result, context, and constraints that it really is its own conversation. You can literally think of it like this. If you were deep in conversation at a party with someone about the fact that they worked for SpaceX and they got to work on some of the rockets, and you had a little bit of interest in like thermodynamics and how the chemical reactions happen, and you're going deep into that, and you stop and you go over and you start talking to some completely different person and ask them the same the same thing or the next logical question. Okay, good. So tell me again, like, why doesn't the metal like get brittle when it gets up into the cold of outer space? They'd be like, what are you talking about? Context matters. And in the same way, if you were talking to that person about all this stuff about SpaceX and thermodynamics and big rockets, and then you said, what do you think the best recipe for making hash brown casserole is? I mean, like, one, they would turn and walk away. Two, you probably wouldn't get invited to a lot of parties. Context matters. So yes, each time you are attacking a new like role, context, area, switch to a new conversation. If you look at mine here on this page, I mean, they just go back and 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 back. Okay. I wish there might be a little better experience for pinning them and organizing them. I haven't explored that very much, but the answer is yes. Okay, so back to what we're talking about. Let's get a brand new one. You all saw that prompt I made. It's all about you being ChatGPT is an experienced instructor, and you want a complete study program, and you've got some things about it that you care about. So let's go ahead and run it and see what ChatGPT comes up with. So let's go to the top here and look. So it started with the fundamentals, React, Python, MySQL, practical application development. So let's see if it follows that pattern. Fundamentals of computer science, React, Python, MySQL, practical application. So fundamentals of how computers work, Python, React, backend, MySQL, added in this deploying applications, and then it goes to practical. So it followed the sequence I want. Okay. So I wouldn't stop here. If I was really, if I really wanted to just like guide myself in learning something new, then I would take one of these. Let's take, for example, section 2. And I would go down here and say, please write a detailed lesson plan for section 2. And then I would, this is a little tip. When you have collections of items, remind ChatGPT what you were talking about. Please. So I want, if I were learning, I would want include resources I can study, methods to reinforce my learning, and possible hurdles I might encounter. I would say be verbose. I want to give me a lot of data. And remember, all this data is out there on the internet. You got trained on all this stuff. You can't just trust it implicitly. You do have to do your homework, but it certainly gives you a decent idea of what's going on. While it's printing that, I'm going to give you guys a bonus. If I can find this. I found it. I've found this really valuable. Okay, so obviously it gave you a pretty good lesson plan, right? But again, I mentioned something earlier. If you are reading through stuff and you find terms you don't understand, clear them up. So Python, Python, IDEs, integrated development. What is that? So I'm going to give you all this. In fact, well, I'll figure out a way to get this to you folks. You can always watch a video and just type this out. Please give me a simple definition of the term, and I want integrated development environment, right? Let's say I'm not 100% certain what that is, and I don't want to search through 9 million Google results. And this is the important part. In your definition, do not use additional technical terms. Use additional technical terms that may be unknown to the reader. Instead, explain these technical terms inside the definition. Provide an example sentence. Include an explanation of how it applies to software engineering. So I've put some constraints in there. I don't want it to just drop 5 more words I don't understand in its simple definition. If you didn't know what an IDE was, I'd like you to read that whole thing for a moment. If you did not know what that was, read that whole explanation. Swathi says, how do you get a new prompt? I apologize. It's this little thing right here that has the pencil writing on a piece of paper. Zhao is asking about the trade-offs between crafting some really good prompt and just taking the time to search on Google. That's a personal thing. I was at first, until I got comfortable with ChatGPT, just going half and half, back and forth. At this point, I use Google about 5% of the time. I'm just sick and tired of the experience. So if you did, now listen carefully, if you did not really 100% know what an IDE was, and this explanation helped you, give me a 1 in chat. There we go, Lorado. Excellent. Good. Look, I just want to stress something, okay? I understand that I'm sitting here as an experienced engineer, worked in technology for a long time, and I'm using a lot of these examples of like when you're at the beginning of your journey. I just want to clarify something. I use this every day, and the reason why is, I don't know if you know this about technology, there's so much a senior engineer doesn't know. Yes, I have had these moments, and I've talked to my peers. Every once in a while, we'll have these moments where we're like, "Dang, I learned a lot." Thank you, Zhao. Zhao, please come back. I'd love to see you in more classes. But you'll have these moments where like, "Wow, I actually know a lot of things." But what happens way more often is something reminds you of how much you don't know. It's impossible to have a comprehensive knowledge of everything that's going on in technology. It's literally impossible. But what is possible is to use a tool that has been trained on all the text involved in everything that's going on in technology. In other words, to use ChatGPT, and at the very minimum, at least get some sort of a fundamental understanding of something you didn't know before. Far more often, you can get a very detailed understanding, including ways to apply it practically, things to be concerned with about it, things that are benefits, social concerns, technical concerns. Like, it's astounding how quickly you can do research. But again, always with the caveat, always with the warning, you can't trust it implicitly. You have to verify things yourself. So to review here, we looked at, like, these are just 3 different examples, and we showed several different instances of each, right? You can use ChatGPT for generating code. We can use it for researching tech concepts. We looked at several different things there, including just dumping your code in and saying, how can I make this better? What have I missed? Are there security concerns? That sort of thing. And I know I called it developing custom study plans, but really just means accelerating your learning. So probably as you get your hands dirty with ChatGPT, you will find more. And I haven't used Copilot yet. Johnny asked, do I prefer using ChatGPT, or there's a tool specifically oriented to software development called Copilot from Microsoft? I haven't tried it out yet. So I'm just so comfortable inside the ChatGPT ecosystem. So I've just stayed there. It is one of the things I have, speaking, I was talking about the Tech Academy Accelerator, where you get these weekly workshops where there's a very deep dive. I have one of the items on the to-do list to actually go through getting started with Copilot and figuring out how to integrate it into your development practices. We're going to do some deep dive stuff with that, because I do want to get my hands dirty with it, but I can't tell you which one I prefer because I haven't used Copilot enough. Johnny, that was a good question. So again, there's 3 different areas. I'm sure you're going to come up with your own as you get your hands dirty. Okay. All right. Oh, I messed that up. Hold on a second. So I've handled a lot of questions already. I want to see if there's any I've missed. Okay. And if you have a new one, drop it into chat right now. Oh, Nicholas, I like that one. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, Doug, I really do want to answer that Lambda question, but that's beyond the scope. Okay, good. Awesome. So here's a good question from Nicholas. He says, as a developer that's well-versed in using GPT for learning or work, what challenges do you still encounter at your level? The real challenge for me, Nicholas, is it's 2 things and I've got bright people in this class today. It's the trade-off of, do I really want to take the time to craft some super prompt or just Google some crap, right? I struggle with that. And sometimes I'll get done doing it and I'll solve the problem that I want to solve with ChatGPT, and I'll go, I think I could have done that faster just Googling it, right? And same thing, I'll just Google and I'll go down 7 different open tabs and 3 different rabbit holes, and I'm like, something about this isn't making sense. And then I'll go, never mind, go over to ChatGPT, and boom, I'll get an explanation in about a minute, right? So it's just a personal thing, right? But those are the challenges that I've faced. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that's more challenging. I've gotten more and more comfortable with it, but only because I got my hands really dirty with it. I was late to the party. Like it came out in December of 2022, and by spring of 2023, after it had millions of users, I hadn't even touched it. But I'll share a little story, right, about why I went, oh, there's something of value here. So I co-founded a boot camp. I make a lot of curriculum, right? And for a long time, I was doing a lot of training using JavaScript and a technology called Node. You're welcome, Swati. Thank you. And there, you can easily spin up a specific kind of application. It's called an API. I referred to it earlier. You can easily spin up an API in about 10, 15 minutes using JavaScript and Node. And you can use it as a really good teaching tool and everything. Well, I'm a C# developer, the language from Microsoft. They came out 24 years ago, right? Pretty popular language. That's my core expertise, although I've gotten really good at JavaScript. And I wanted to have the same experience of just quickly spinning up an API that I could use as a teaching tool in C#. And I couldn't do it to save my life. And over a period of about a year and a half, it was always one of those things on the back burner, and I'd go out to the internet and I'd poke around and like, how could we pare this down and make it simple and easy? And are there any examples? Anybody else doing this or whatever? Couldn't find anything. And so when it was one afternoon, I got done with work and I'm like, all right, yet another article in my feed about ChatGPT. Apparently it's the biggest thing since sliced bread. This is like April last year. It was a year ago, right? I went, I guess I should look at it. And so I went, all right, let's really test it. And I wrote up, essentially, this is what I've been doing for years in teaching people about APIs using Node and JavaScript. I want something similar in C#. Make it. It took 45 seconds and it was perfect. I know C# really well. I looked at the code and went, I could put that into a computer program right now and it would work. I could put that into a slide deck teaching the fundamentals and it would work. And I went, oh, so I guess there's something to this ChatGPT thing. So that's how it was a technical need that got me on the road. So, all right, I'll just look at one more question here. Doug asks, can you provide some examples of best practice questions you might have used to improve your code? Curious how it's improved your general coding practice. The biggest results I've gotten are from saying, listen, this is the approach I'm taking to solve the technical problem. Like I'm trying to build the following. Here's what I've come up with. What am I missing? Because look, Doug, that was a really good question. And this is a lesson for all of us on this call, okay? When you're looking at something that's been produced, trying to spot things that might be wrong with it or could be improved, that's relatively easy. When you're looking at something, trying to figure out what isn't there that should be, that can be much harder. And instead of having some big checklist off to the side for each type of development work you're doing and going, if you're doing development work of type A, here's the things you need to think about. Instead of doing that, just use ChatGPT to say, this is what I'm doing. What am I missing? So anyway, all right. I know there's more questions. In the interest of time, I want to move on. You will have a chance to send your questions in to me. So if you have a question you wanted answered, what I recommend you do right now is copy your question out of the chat because you're going to have a chance to email it to me and I will respond. So a brief word about who we are. What is the Tech Academy? I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I just want to give you a little more data. Obviously, we deliver coding boot camps, but we deliver 12 coding boot camps covering a huge range of subjects. Artificial intelligence, duh, right? We got some expertise there. Computer programming, website development, cybersecurity, design, data science, video game development, mobile app development. We have more certification programs than any other coding bootcamp on earth. And our boot camps are self-paced, but they're also instructor supported. They're flexible. Students set their own schedule and they can enroll 365 days a year. Our boot camps have content that's well-rounded and in-depth, and they're affordable, the price under the national average. All of our boot camps include both job placement training and job placement assistance. You learn everything about getting a tech job, and then we help you to do so. Most importantly, though, they're designed for absolute beginners. No technology knowledge or experience is required. So you don't have to be a nerd to get through our programs. I mean, I am, but that's just one of my faults. So we've been acknowledged a lot for this. We consistently land on every major best coding bootcamp list out there. And our average review rating across all major bootcamp review websites is 4.8 out of 5 stars. That's based on student and graduate feedback, which we're very proud of. So I'm assuming that most people on this call have at least, or in the meeting, have at least some interest in tech, but I just want to bring up the question, why would you consider working in technology? Well, it does have really good work-life balance. Yeah, some of the work you have to do is challenging. Sometimes it's not. Regardless, I've done a lot of jobs in my life. Nothing's got the work-life balance of tech. And remote work is possible, which is really cool. I work from my front porch 95% of the time, and I love it. It looks out over this marsh right next to the lake, and there's birds everywhere and open sky, and I like that. I work really hard, but I'm working in a place I like. It is also a very creative industry, which might surprise some people, might not surprise others. I know you're working with machines and writing code. The fact is, you only write code about an hour, hour and a half a day on average, which is surprising to some people. A lot of the time you spent collaborating with people and designing things and throwing discussions back and forth about some technical thing that people are trying to solve. And it's very creative, and you can take a lot of personal pride in your work. It's also a stable industry that pays well, really well. And if you work hard and keep learning, you get regular increases in pay. You can look the statistics up yourself, but you might be surprised to look up what's the average wage in America for a software developer. It's a heck of a lot more than people who have college degrees, but nobody talks about that. So, all that said, yes, we provide boot camps, and there are some barriers to doing a boot camp. The biggest one I want to mention is that it's the tuition cost. It costs thousands of dollars to get through a boot camp. Now, we've done everything we could to make that more approachable. We have multiple financing options. We have an upfront discount if you can just pay in full. We have monthly payment options if you have no credit or bad credit. The point is, there's a tuition option for everyone in whatever financial condition. But honestly, this is going to sound cliche, but in my mind, it isn't really about the money, although you do have to solve the money. It's that doing a Tech Academy bootcamp is an investment in yourself. You're equipping yourself for a long-term, successful, financially rewarding career. But you also have to have enough time, right? Where are we? It takes a while to study it. Now, various boot camps have tried various things to solve the fact that it takes some time to get through. Like some boot camps have figured out to put people in cohorts. Like if you sign up, you don't start right away. You wait until start date. And then everyone who signed up previously just goes through the program at the exact same time in the exact same sequence. And you have to like 9 to 5, right? Like just hardcore. Self-paced programs work better. We've tried both. It's just the best. So, by the way, some places actually make you come into the campus. You do all of our programs online. Also, you can choose your own study schedule. That's one of the things we've worked really hard at over the years is you don't have to just follow a rigid study schedule, which means you can also do part-time schedule so you can study concurrently to holding down a job or if you're already going to school somewhere else. But I will say that, and I think most people on the meeting have this, you need to have some sort of technical interest or ability. But here's where I just want to be completely blunt. If you are operating under any kind of an idea that maybe you don't have the right ability or chops or maybe not bright enough or don't know enough math or anything like that, please get rid of it. All you really need to succeed in tech is to be a bright, nice person who can read, write, and do basic math. That's it. Yes, it requires work to get through. You have to learn a lot. But at the outset, you break into a really great career. And again, with our curriculum, we don't assume any prior knowledge. So you don't have to be a nerd. There's no background in tech required to get through it. So if any of that made sense to you, I've got some questions. Are you working a dead-end job? And I don't mean to disparage whatever job you have. I just mean like when you look, a year or 2 or 3 or 5 down the line or 10 years, like what does that income ceiling look like? What kind of roles are you going to be in and do you want them, right? And what kind of work-life balance is there? Or you might just flat out be unemployed. Maybe it's important to you to do things like work from home, have more time with your loved ones. The point is it time for a career change for you? And if it is, Tech Academy is the solution. We are career change experts. The bridge you see in our logo is there for a reason. We are the route into technology for everyone. We tried to bridge that gap for people. And we have a decade of experience now breaking people into tech. We're really, really good at it. Most of our graduates, on average, in their first job, are making $30 an hour. That's $60,000 a year. I want to point out, by the way, again, something nobody talks about. The average wage for a college graduate, fresh out of school, is $52,000 a year. And it took them 4 years and between $100,000 and $250,000. Our graduates make $30,000. It's not $30,000, $60,000 a year in their first jobs on average. And this isn't just isolated. We have over 1,000 graduates working in tech. These are real statistics. And it's all kinds of places. Sorry about that. It's all kinds of places, like in small businesses, medium-sized, all the way up to the big guys like Nike and Facebook and Disney and Uber and Epic Games. We have graduates that work at all of those and everything in between. So as a reminder, we have open enrollment. You can start anytime, and I encourage you to enroll. It's a phenomenal opportunity for the right person. So if you look in chat, Regina dropped a link, learncodinganywhere.com/Erik. It is the Erik link, and you can request information about our school. And we give you a lot of information. When you go to that link and fill out a quick little form, it's very, very brief. There's a bunch of videos and articles, all the kind of information you want to just find out more about the school and figure out, is it a fit for me? So if you're interested, fill out that form and then do those steps after the event. Stick around for the free gift, by the way. We're almost there. Man, Johnny, it's a great question. I would really like to see you in the accelerator. Thank you, Bree. Appreciate it. Come back soon. All right. So, referral program. Our graduates love us, and because of that, referrals have been one of the biggest sources of new enrollments for us for years. And so years ago, we put in place a commission payment system for people that referred their friends. It isn't just for graduates and students. It's for you too. If you have anybody you think of that, like, man, you got to go to one of these classes these guys are putting on. You need to talk to someone at the school. Like, if you've got a friend you think this might be a good fit for, send them our way. We'll keep track of it. And if they enroll, we'll send you a check for 5% of their tuition. How do you do that? Well, in a minute, we're going to give you an email address to be able to get your free gift. And you can include any referral data you want in there, name and contact information. Now, brief word on our books, because we've written 7 of them. We have 3 Learn and Coding Basics in Hours books. We have a coding book for kids and young adults, which is really cool. Although my co-founder, we are the characters in the book, and his character teases mine incessantly throughout the entire book, which kids love, me not so much. We have a Technology Basics Dictionary, explains thousands of tech terms in a really simple manner. And we have a Project Management Handbook and our flagship book, You Are Not Stupid, Computers and Technology Simplified. It's basically a written version of the most important course we have in our boot camps, a course called the Computer Basics course. It just removes all mystery and confusion from computers and technology. Yeah, the book's phenomenal. It's got a history of technology, all these words defined, like, it's great. So, free gift that I mentioned. It's our free project management handbook. Look, coding isn't the only thing to it. I already mentioned that, like, you only spend about an hour or hour and a half of your day on average writing code. There's a lot of other activities involved in making software in a company with teams. How do you manage that? Well, this book tells you how. If you want to get a picture of what life is like in the software industry, this is a really good place to start. It describes the various approaches to getting, organizing people to get something really effective done in software. If you want a copy of this, it's US only. I'm sorry if you're overseas. We do have like a Kindle version that's a couple bucks. But if you want your own physical copy, we will send one to you to your house. Just email in your name, your full mailing address, and we'll get one sent out in a couple days. Also, if you have any further questions that I couldn't get to, send her that email address and say, I have a question for Erik. And finally, if you have any referrals, include them in that email. I'm going to give a moment for anybody who wants to fill that out. I'll take a sip of water. Yeah, Pereira, you need to grab our email address and send us an email. Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Glad you're here. That was a great question, Thomas. All right. Now, I mentioned that we record these and we make these videos available. Well, you can get that and a whole lot more by going to our link tree. This is all of our links. Links to our free educational YouTube video playlist, links to our books and dictionary, upcoming meetups. If you want to come to future classes, all the links are there, and links to all of our social media accounts, right? So please follow us on social. Invite your friends to future meetups. We'd love to see your friends in these classes. I love giving them. And if you want to have a chance to win your own copy of You Are Not Stupid, we give one of these away every week. All you need to do to be in the running to win this, it's really simple. Get the link to our next class. It's even in this chat further on up, and it's at this link tree. Get the link to our next event and share it on your social media. But you got to tag us, tag the Tech Academy. And of course, we're going to be notified in our social media. And we'll put your name in a hat. At the end of the week, we'll draw a number. Draw a name, and we'll send you your own physical copy. It's a chunky book. It covers a lot of ground. So, thank you very much for attending. I especially loved all the questions. It's fantastic. And the back and forth, your willingness to communicate, I super appreciate it. If you want more of this, but really, really deep dive, check out the Tech Academy Accelerator. And please come to our next class. Oh, as a reminder, if you filled out this form at the link you see on the screen, make sure to go back and do the next steps. Watch the videos. And you'll see my ugly mug explaining things and read some articles. Thank you, Nicholas. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you in this class. Talk to you soon.